art books, and sleep. These are two things I can never seem to get enough of, and in this video I'm going to share 6 of my favorite art books that I turn to for inspiration and learning new drawing concepts. For those who are new here, my name is Amar Ali and I'm a former accountant chasing my lifelong dream of becoming an artist, and this channel is my way of documenting that journey. The first book I would love to show you guys is John Singer Sargent, authored by Carter Radcliffe. And although this is actually a fairly recent addition to my art book collection, I am guilty of reading through it countless times in the past when frequenting the bookstores. Oh, and just to let you know, the way I've structured this video, this is the first of 3 art inspiration books that I'll be sharing with you guys, which will then be followed by 3 instructional art books. If I may say, this book is absolutely gorgeous. This is the oversized edition which contains all illustrations in stunning colors, unlike the standard edition which apparently has a mix of colored and monochrome reproductions of the artworks. As you would expect, the book offers an illuminating description of Sargent's life, taking us through the different phases of his art career, as well as offering insights into specific artworks. While Sargent did do a considerable number of studies in watercolors and charcoal, most of his work and what he became mostly known for are his flattering portraits of the European high society rendered in oils. What fascinates me about Sargent is how he uses the power of suggestion in his impressionist artworks that feel controlled yet effortless at the same time. Remarkably, what looks loose and spontaneous up close in his paintings magically resolves into precise detail from a distance. One of my goals for this year is to immerse myself into the world of colors by doing a series of studies in oil pastels and maybe gouache, and I think this will be the perfect reference book for just that. JC is widely recognized as one of the most accomplished illustrators of the 20th century, and once you flip through a few pages, it's easy to see why. Aside from a few of his personal artworks, most of the book features his iconic commercial illustrations that were commissioned for magazines like the Saturday Evening Post, Collier's, and the Woman's Magazine. As someone who wants to explore illustration for books and graphic novels in the future, I find this book incredibly useful to study JC's bold, stylized anatomy drawn with confident line work, and the way he composes everything so meticulously in a considered manner within the confined frame. Eleeza Ivanova is one of my absolute favorite artists and a huge inspiration in my own drawing journey. She's known for her beautiful graphite drawings, sometimes with an overlay of digital paint. Her style blends classical fine art with more modern, stylized elements that are reminiscent of the work by the great Italian illustrator Sergio Topi. One thing that surprised me about this book, in a good way of course, is just how instructional it is. There are a bunch of drawing tutorials and process breakthroughs, which, to be honest, I wasn't expecting. In many ways, this book feels like a concept art book that offers a glimpse into the artist's thought process, how their ideas evolve from rough sketches into fully realized pieces. As someone interested in concept art and illustration, I really appreciate the behind the scenes perspective. And as a beginner, seeing how Eleeza builds her drawings step by step makes the whole process feel both more approachable and inspiring. So, on to my favorite instructional art books, and the first one I'm going to share is The Constructive Drawing by George Bridgman. And this book has been widely recommended by so many artists as a reference book for learning to draw anatomy in a dynamic way. Although the book is very concise, don't let that fool you. By no means is this a quick read, at least for me, because I'm not that knowledgeable about anatomy, so it takes me a while to understand the different concepts explained here. In this book, Bridgman breaks down the human anatomy into the smallest building blocks that make sense from the perspective of an artist, and his illustrations allow us to visualize the human forms in terms of these simple blocks of shapes that interact with one another by twisting, stretching, and wedging onto one another depending on how the different elements are aligned. To make the most out of this book, I do recommend redrawing the Bridgman illustrations and applying those to some actual references of human anatomy to absorb the explained concepts. So, this book is authored by Gerald Ackerman. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's based on the famous drawing course created by Charles Bargue in the 19th century. And many prominent artists over the past 150 years have gone through this course. Vincent van Gogh is known to have studied the Bargue course twice in his lifetime, and in his letters to his brother Theo, he remarked about the effectiveness of this course in improving his drawing. So there's a lot of history associated with this course, and the author of this book starts with shedding a bit of light on that and goes on to explain some general guidelines for completing the course. Most of the book is comprised of the 197 bark plates, which are these beautifully drawn anatomical studies by Bargue that are meant to be copied precisely by art students. The complexity of these drawings progressively increases, starting with simple line drawings and gradually advancing to studies of casts, sculptures, and finally on to figure drawings. I think what makes this a great course for beginners is that the hands-on approach to teaching drawing with minimal instructions forces you to work on the fundamental drawing skills like observation, blocking, line control, and shading, which actually improve your drawing instead of overloading students with information they may not necessarily know how to apply. And every time I don't know what to draw, which happens far too often by the way, I love the fact that I have a library of 197 references I can readily choose from to get some practice without having to sift through walls of Pinterest just to find the perfect reference. For my last book, I'm going with an unknown classic that I doubt anyone has heard about, Drawing the Head and Hands by Andrew Loomis. I know you've probably already either read the book a dozen times or watched a few hundred tutorials on it, but I love the utter simplicity of this book, which has completely revolutionized how we draw faces by reducing it into a simple and repeatable process. The book is divided into two parts, with the major portion dedicated to explaining the process for drawing heads, and the second, smaller part discusses the strategies for drawing hands. And yes, I'm still procrastinating on studying that part. But honestly, this book probably has had the biggest impact on my drawing because it introduced me to the concept of constructive drawing, how you can essentially design any drawing by breaking down the subject into big shapes and visualizing those shapes in 3 dimensions in space, as opposed to just recreating details directly from observation. If you're interested, you can watch a video I made on the Loomis method based on this book that I'll add in the end screen. If you've got any recommendations for any books I should check out, please let me know in the comments. I've linked all books from this video in the description if anyone's interested. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.